And so she did. She said, yes, I am. I'm attracted to girls. I'm attracted to women. In my mind, because of what I wanted for her, that was incredibly scary.
All right. Thank you for coming in and sitting with me today so we can talk. This is going to be great. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, some hobbies or work or
Sure.
about you.
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Erin Allen. I have 4 daughters, and 2 of them are raised and have moved out of the house, and I have 2 of them that are in junior high still. Let's see, hobbies. I love to read. I love anything like Disney, travel, especially Disney travel, anything like that. I love, I'm like a Diet Coke addict, which is obviously not healthy, but it's part of my everyday routine, I guess. I just mostly love to be around people, and especially my family. So those are kind of my hobbies.
Okay, great. So you mentioned to me that you wanted to say a few things before we get started, kind of some disclaimers.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I just figure that as I'm telling my story, that there are some things that if I don't say them now, that I will just say repeatedly throughout. It will waste our time and our energy. So I'll just put it out that what I'm going to be talking about today is that I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I have a gay daughter. And so I kind of debated about whether or not I should leave it to be a little bit more general, like should I say what my religion is? And I've decided that I just can't share my story with a really genuine nature because it's so entrenched in my story. I'd be leaving a lot of things out. So I'm going to throw that out there. But before anybody turns off this video and just thinks, I cannot resonate with that. I don't have anything that she could share with me that might be helpful. I hope that you'll wait to decide that later. You may have someone in your life that is gay and you may not even know it. Or you may have other religious doctrines or the religious traditions and stuff that play into your life that when you hear my story and how it's playing out for me, maybe you'll say, oh, I'm not a member of her church, but I can understand that in my own experience. Or you may be a member of my church and have a gay family member and still get to the end of this and think I didn't get anything from it. So I don't know, but I just hope that you'll hear it out, even though maybe our stories are different. The other disclaimer is that I did talk to my daughter before I did this. So if you are watching this and wondering, oh, did she talk to her daughter? That seems like that's really personal and maybe she shouldn't be sharing that. She gave me her permission to share what I'm sharing today. And let me think if there was another one. Oh, yeah, also some of my story may be ugly to some people. Some people may listen to this and they may think, wow, she is a terrible mother, or how could she think that, or how could she do that? And I'm not here to exonerate myself, but I'm not here to incriminate myself either. And so if I don't go around apologizing throughout the whole entire story for some things I did that I wouldn't do now, I'm just throwing that out altogether. But hopefully you'll watch this with some mercy and realize that we all have our own experiences that we learn through in life, and maybe we won't judge mine too harshly, I guess is what I'm hoping. So those are my disclaimers.
Great. Okay, so let's start with your upbringing. You were raised a Christian in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
That's right.
And do you want to share anything else about your upbringing that might play into how this evolves for you?
Oh, let's see. Sure. I was raised in a home where, and I think during an era and time too, where LGBTQ discussions were not held in any way. I also grew up in a home where there wasn't any degradation of those things either. It's not like where anything was explained at all, or also where we knew anybody that we were aware of that was part of the LGBTQ community. There wasn't any slurs in my home, or there was nothing like that. It was just very off the table, nothing. I really knew absolutely nothing. So that was kind of how I was raised, and also raised within the paradigms and the doctrine and stuff of our religion. So that's kind of what my experience was.
So I think it's important that maybe we point out that in that doctrine and it says marriage is between man and a woman.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So in our religion it does say that. I was raised believing that men and women, that the best thing that you could do is find someone to settle down with, and even more importantly make covenants with. So in our religion we believe that you have the opportunity to be sealed for time and all eternity in the temple. So that is culturally and doctrinally a big part of what we're raised to desire. And then as we grow up and that becomes such a part of our belief system and something that is so entrenched in us, what we really want for our families and for our kids.
So let's talk about when your daughter first came out and how that unfolded for you, when you learned.
All right, so my daughter Daphne, she was 15, I guess, and she honestly she had some issues with anxiety her whole life, and she had a lot of struggles that were separate from this, I think, also intertwined, but kind of separate. And I really was super clueless. Again, coming back to kind of my history, I had really only known a couple of gay people, even in my adult life. I remember kind of an embarrassing story that I kind of feel like I need to share to show my naivete, is that I was working in Seattle at the Disney store, and things up in Seattle were a lot more liberal, you know, but even then I was super unexposed. So anyway, when you have someone come into the Disney store, I was supposed to say hi, who are you shopping for? What can I help you find? And this woman came in and I said, hi, who are you shopping for? And she said, I'm shopping for my partner. I went, oh, are you a lawyer? Are you like a policewoman or something? Like it was that bad. And she's like, no, I'm shopping for my partner in life and love. And I think that it took me a full 5 seconds. I'm like, oh, I'm really that naive about things like that. So when I get to the point that Daphne had been online and I had seen some things that she had posted, and it clued me in that there was something going on there, right? And I talked to her one day. She had early morning seminary because we lived in Texas at the time, and seminary is a class that people of my religion, the kids, take a lot of the time. So she had been to seminary, and I picked her up and I asked her, and said, hey, are you attracted to girls? And at first she denied it. She had had a few other things before that I had seen maybe, around the house, or kind of asked her, and she was very adamant, no, Mom, I'm not gay. Oh my gosh, how could you ask that? I think that she was so worried because we had raised her even more so, whereas I was raised in a home where it just wasn't talked about. Things were coming to the forefront in the world. The media was getting more and more prevalent. Everything just is becoming, we're starting to see it more and more often in teenagers and things. Not in our circle where we lived. Daphne, honestly, was the only person we know of. She was the first person in our community, church community, kind of a, neighborhood, family. We had nobody to identify with, nobody to associate with, nobody to get strength from. We honestly felt like we were like a boat floating in water all alone. Even our church didn't seem to have quite the media out. There were no books that I could pick up that would talk about how to handle this with a religious sort of support, how to handle this if you still love your religion, how to help your child. I felt very, very alone. And I really was. At the time, my husband didn't even know. None of my family knew, none of my friends. It was just me and Daphne, and so sitting there in that kind of a environment where she had been raised, where we had started to say, well, you're going to see this in the world, and just know that we think it's wrong. Does that make sense? You'll see this online, and we think it's wrong. You'll see this in your school, and we think it's wrong. And our doctrine and our culture and stuff, that's what we were teaching her, that it was wrong. So she was nervous. She was scared to open up to us and say, that's me. That thing you've been saying is so wrong. That's me. And so it was really hard. So I had seen the post, and we talked about it, and I was more emphatic that, I saw this, so, I know there must be a thing. And so she did. She said, yes, I am. I'm attracted to girls. I'm attracted to women. In my mind, because of what I wanted for her, that was incredibly scary. I would say that, because I was kind of thinking this morning, it's a little bit like those shape sorters that you have for little kids, and they're those like colorful ones, and you split them in half and dump all the pieces onto the floor. And in my mind, I had this Daphne's life shape sorter, right? And everything was going to go exactly like my thoughts and my traditions and my belief system dictated that it would. You know, like there's the shape that looks like what her family life will look like as an adult. And there's a shape that would look like what her dating life would look like, or a shape of whether or not she'd stay in my church. And I'm sitting here kind of mentally going through and going, wait a second, these don't fit for me anymore. Like all these like thoughts that I thought Daphne's life would like, they don't fit. Like I can't pick up the Daphne's marriage shape and put it in my paradigm of Daphne's marriage. It's not going to look like that. It won't. I can sit and try to force it all I want. It's not going to fit, you know. And that at the time made me feel very alone and very empty. And especially as you look around and all the other people who share your paradigm or your religion or your belief system seems to be working at it, you know, like they thought it was going to. You know, their kids seem to be fitting into all those spaces, and at the time it was scary because of that, because I had so built my construct around that, about what Daphne's life would look like. One other thing that I was thinking about recently is, and hopefully this will resonate with people too, if anybody's seen like Fiddler on the Roof, like I've decided that Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof is like one of my very favorite people in the whole world, because he's talking about his traditions. Like he's talking about being a Jewish man in Russia, but he's talking about this is what a tradition is to me. It shows, my religious traditions show what God expects of me and what I expect of others and what God expects of them. And sometimes in life, those are kind of thrown on their head, kind of like in that story where his daughter comes to him and says, I'm not using a matchmaker anymore. I found my husband and we're getting married and we're not doing it your way. Or where his other daughter says, I'm marrying a Christian even though I'm a Jew. Or, you know, and all of a sudden he's having to do all this contemplation in his life about, wow, what does this mean for me? What is my relationship with my family looking like in relation to God? And how do I fit all those pieces back together again? And I think that is kind of what my husband and I and Daphne have had, and my other children have had to do together, is to re-evaluate those things, what they look like.
As this came out and you moved through it emotionally, how has that changed you?
Oh, okay. So, you know, and it's been years. This happened 4 years ago. So we first found out when she was only 15. So that's evolved so much. I think that first and foremost, just experiences have changed me. There's been some opportunities where that fear has been able to be dispersed. And things that we worried about that now I don't worry about anymore. More specifically, some of my fears were, how is this going to be handled by other people of my faith? How is this going to be handled by close friends? What about family members? Like initially, nobody in our family, well, my mother knew fairly early on, but really nobody else knew. How is that affected as it's unfolded? I know that a lot of people, everybody finds out all at once. You know, like maybe someone comes out and says, I'm gay, and tells everyone, maybe online or something, all at once. Sometimes it's not like that. We actually had an experience where Daphne, probably when she was about 16, someone got on her Instagram account because she had been using Instagram on a bunch of different friends' phones. So she still doesn't know who posted it, but someone posted that she was a lesbian under her own account. And all of a sudden we're getting phone calls like crazy, but they're only from people who follow Daphne. They're not from my parents, they're not from any family members, but just locally, lots of people like, I saw this, what does this mean? Can you explain this to me? So something that felt really private and very, very personal was all of a sudden put out in a way that we weren't prepared to handle. Mm-hmm. We weren't prepared to have those answers for people. We didn't think we should have to have those answers for people. Mm-hmm. That was very much something that I felt very protective of Daphne, that should be
on her terms.
Yeah, that should be on her terms. Mm-hmm. And like sharing with other people in my life should be on my terms. And it was really difficult. And so that kind of came and went and blew over. And caused Daphne some distress, though. There was some people who didn't react to her the same anymore. People at church, like more specifically her own age, that didn't react to her the same anymore. There were comments made that she overheard. There were a lot of hard things that were hurtful to Daphne. And so to us too, it was hard. On the other hand, other things about coming out as time has unfolded, whether it's her coming out to people or it's whether us coming out as a family, because it's kind of a family affair, to be honest. It's kind of a family thing. They've been beautiful. I specifically had an experience with my dad that was really neat. He was probably one of the last people I told, probably because I would have considered him to be more likely to not get it or not support, maybe. And he's not even particularly very religious. That's kind of his character, I thought. So I had been really hesitant and nervous to talk to him. Anyway, one day I was having a particularly hard day about some things having to do with Daphne. And I was at the local grocery store, and I was in tears. And I was trying to get myself together and try to figure some things out. And I felt like, I all of a sudden remembered, I'm like, you didn't go get any produce yet. And part of me was thinking, well, why would I go get produce? I'm in the middle of bawling in the grocery store. But I decided to go over to the produce section. So I went over and I'm getting produce, and he, all of a sudden I was sitting there in the produce section and I heard my name called. And I turned and it was my dad. And I just started to cry. And he just enveloped me in this big hug. And he's like, what is the matter? And I said, oh, I'm just having such a hard day today. I'm really struggling with fitting some things together about Daphne. And he just loved me, and he says, oh, she's going to be just fine. And I just said, well, oh, Dad, you don't have any idea. I need to really have a talk with you, and probably soon. And anyway, I apologize. I'm gonna quote my dad, and you may have to edit it. But anyway, he said, I know what's going on with Daphne. He says, I've known for quite a while. And I just said, you have? And he says, and don't you worry, I enjoy the hell out of her. And I just thought, oh my gosh, to have my dad just say that, it felt so good. And we've had, talked to my husband's parents. They were fabulous about it. I think that's the thing is, fear sometimes, fear limits. Fear limits you. It stops you in your tracks. It makes it so you don't have opportunities that you could be having. And love just opens all of that up. Sometimes I think we don't trust people enough. We don't, and I'm not speaking to people who are LGBTQ that need to come out. I know that's a much scarier place to be. But once it got to be my story to share, once it got to be Daphne's out and we need to be more open about it, I wish I would have trusted people more. I think that especially as we've moved to Utah, I've been very surprised. I've had so much support from neighbors, from friends. People are like, oh yeah, this so-and-so in my family, is gay, or so-and-so, and my neighbor, my friend. It just has not been nearly what I worried about. It's been really nice.
So along those lines, let's talk about support, the word support. So how does the best support, what does that look like?
All right, so support, I would say that there's two different aspects. There's the support that I could choose to give to my daughter, that I hope that people around us will choose to give to my daughter, and then there's support of how I like support to look like for my husband, for me, for siblings, for people who are also part of Daphne's story. We also need support. So I'll start with Daphne. My support for her we really had a chance to have that change. A lot of our first, especially probably my first response to her was very tentative and very full of fear. So when she's saying, yes, I'm attracted to girls, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is that going to look like? What does that mean? And I'm trying to caution her. I'm still trying to protect her, I guess, is what I would have thought, from what I saw as potential outcomes of her choices based on her feelings. And so I don't feel like back then that I supported her maybe the way I can or do now. Also, support for Daphne looks different because I support her differently as an adult, living an adult life, living out of our home, than I did when she was 15. So because of our my religious beliefs and because of some of the doctrine and culture, one of the things was is that like she wasn't allowed to date girls when she lived at home. A lot of people may not agree with that. That was our family decision, or at least mine and my husband's decision. So it was hard to support her. It was hard to know that she had these feelings that she felt, to not be able to even feel like I wanted to let her date girls, to even feel like I wanted to have that those girls brought home. That part was really, really hard. And through time, as like we've come to like move, we've come here, she moved out, that support looks a lot different. One of the things we've been worried about is what is it gonna look like when she decides to get married? That was a big one. In our culture, and there's, it's very typical to go to someone's home and you'll see that on their fridge a wedding announcement, and it has our temple where we typically hope their children will get married, and there's the girl with her fiance who's a guy, and it's not up there, and everybody's like, yay, and celebrating it. And I thought, oh, that's not what that's going to look like for me. What is that going to look like? Daphne actually got engaged last year. She's not engaged to this person anymore. But at the time, as we were able to congratulate her, as we were able to celebrate with her, as we were able to invite this person into our home, I'm not going to name them because I don't think that's appropriate, but as we were able to invite this person into our home and to just absolutely love them. This person is actually a non-binary girl, and so this person goes by they and them. So we invited them into our home. We put them on both of them collectively, including the fiance, on our Christmas card. And it felt so good. Like to be able to just kind of say to all of our family and friends, hi, this is where we're at. This is our family. This is Daphne. She loves this person. This person is going to be part of our family. And honestly, it felt really, really nice to be able to support Daphne that way. To be able to say, I recognize this is your journey. I recognize this is your life to live, and we're gonna just love you and do that. Again, that's not something I felt like I could do 4 years ago. And whether that is just because of growth on my own part or because Daphne is an adult, it's hard for me to separate those two things because both of them were evolving at the same time. So I guess that's one of the areas where I just want to say that we need to all be patient with each other. Because if you're a mom or someone who is looking at your LGBTQ child and saying, I don't feel like that's where I'm at right now. I don't feel like I can do this with you. I don't feel like right now like I can go to a pride parade with you. Or I don't feel like right now that I can have your girlfriends come to the house. Or wherever you are, I guess try to just establish those with some mercy for yourself and mercy for your kid. It's really easy to beat yourself up a lot as you go through the process because it is all so difficult and so tenuous to find out where you really are with it and how you honor them and love them for who they are, but also as you try to keep peace within your family, try to keep your religious ideas intact, those kinds of things.
So how could others best support you and your family so they get that Christmas card?
Okay, so I had great response. I had people that were like, oh, Daphne's adorable, Daphne's darling, looks like she's very happy. I think that's the thing. Because I have also had responses where it's like, oh, Daphne's engaged. Well, we love Daphne, and we've decided that we'll come to the wedding even though, right? And I think that's the hard part, is the even though. I would say if you have someone in your life who is gay or LGBTQ, and you are trying to show support, or if you have, if you're good friends with a mother of someone who's LGBTQ, or someone at work or something, and you have these kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, a hang-up over it, it's okay to have the hang-ups. That's fine. But maybe be really cautious in voicing your hang-up. I would say the bottom line is all that needs to be said. We love Daphne. We'll be there.
Right.
That's it. I have my own struggles that I have to come through and figure out my own paradigms of things. I don't need to know about everybody else's paradigms about
You don't need to carry
my
their
family.
burden.
Yeah. So just leave it. Just keep it short and sweet. Looks great. Looks like she's happy. Probably that what they're trying to say is like, I love you and I support you, but I'm so worried about my own belief, like how my own beliefs will come off. I'm so worried that you or other people will judge that I am not faithful enough, or I'm not in line with doctrine enough. If I support you, I need to just verbally say, I don't agree with it. Like, does that make sense?
I need to put that out there.
Like to protect myself. To protect myself, I'm going to say, I will be there, but I don't really agree with what's going on, and that's hard. I get it. I get
So
where
you're
they're
saying
coming
they don't
from.
need to say that?
Yeah, don't say that. I mean,
Right.
I think that just basically, I think we all get it. Like, I would assume. I would assume
just doesn't need to be said.
that, especially if you're raised the same way I was, especially if you're part of my same religion, I would assume that that's a struggle for you. I would assume that you're having a hard time and you have some dissonance with it. I would assume that. But because I have my own things that I am dealing with, and it's really more mine to carry, I don't need an added weight of other people's struggles and their dissonance. You can handle that privately. and I'll just know and respect that's likely a thing. And then I'll respect your decision. If you don't show up to my daughter's wedding, you don't show. And that's okay, Or if you tear up the Christmas card, I won't know about it. I don't need to know, But I would say that's a good way to show support. Just keep it uplifting,
Kind.
judgment-free, and leave all your baggage at the door, about it. Because I think we all have baggage sometimes when we're trying to understand other people.
Yeah.
And it's nice to check your bag before you go into somebody else's life and support their problems. So.
Okay, so as you talk about that, I think it's a good segue into discussing how you came to terms with loving your daughter fully and loving your religion fully. So can you share how you have worked through that?
Sure. Okay, so again, when I first found out, there was a lot of dissonance in my heart and in my mind. I was obviously wanting to support Daphne. Well, maybe even support's not the best word. I think I still was hoping initially to change Daphne, so that's not support. I loved her with what I felt like was all of my heart. I mean, she's my daughter. She's one of my favorite people in the whole entire world. There had been a barrier between us for a long time. When I couldn't put a name on, I think it really was that she needed to come out. She needed to have me know her fully. And I, as her mother, was not able to know her fully because of this part of her that she was trying to hide, to protect herself. And so all of a sudden to have that opened up, but still in a way wanting her to be like, oh, but that's not how I know you. Let's just close that back up, or it's, it's fine. You can go on and still fit into my paradigm, and that wasn't working. Like, that did not work. So that dissonance, that worry about what her life would look like, was very difficult initially and for a while. And it took, I'd say, some of the things that changed for me. I remember trying to be prayerful about it, and at one point I was sitting there thinking about it, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to keep going to a church? A church I believe in, but how am I going to keep attending when I go and the talks are about the homosexuality is wrong? But then I turn around and say to Daphne, you're loved, you're welcome, we want you here, please come to church, or how am I going to handle jealousy when I see other people that that I'm close with and their kids are getting married in the temple, or just any kind of aspect like that? How am I going to have the proclamation to the family that so many members of my church, we print it out, we put it on our wall, all framed. It says that marriage is between, God ordains marriage between a man and a woman. How am I going to do that and invite my daughter to still take part while understanding that's not who she is? So I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, it came to me, I'm like, I'm going to have to be Elastigirl. I'm going to hold on to Daphne with one hand and hold on to my gospel understanding with the other. And if that stretches, and if she pulls one way and the gospel pulls the other, I'll just stretch like crazy. And that kind of gave me some visual hope. I just kind of thought okay, I've got it. Okay, I'm an Elastigirl. I've got this, And it did. I felt really stretched for a long time. Some of the things I think that have changed, I think that members of my church, I think that we've become more open to listening. I maybe not as much as the LGBTQ community wishes that we would, but I think there are strides that are being made that are really helpful. When I first found out about Daphne, I couldn't go to our local Christian bookstore that caters to our church and find any literature about what that looks like to be a member who loves God, who's gay. I couldn't find anything like that. There were no podcasts for me to listen to back then, and so whether it's fair or not, a lot of how I've grown is because other people have been willing to share their stories and grow with me. So whether that looks like listening to podcasts from people who are Christian and are trying to stay true to their faith, or whatever that looks like, people being more open with their stories has been really, really helpful. But over time, I came to a second level of my understanding, which is that I don't have to stretch at all. Like, I was thinking about my understanding of my Savior, my understanding of his role, of my role in his plan for me, of my covenants that I've made with him. They were all over here, and then I had Daphne over here, and I was trying to hold on to them both. And over time, I just had this lovely feeling settle on me that was just like, you don't have to do that. Like, loving Daphne and holding on to her is my gospel. That is what you're doing by keeping your covenants. That is what you're doing by loving her and being there for her and walking with her in her journey. That is my gospel. And that just completely, that was like a huge changing moment for me because I didn't feel the distance anymore. The distance was gone. So that is kind of how I've kind of come full circle through my understanding of my own religious thoughts and my own religious beliefs, instead of having it be a place of fear or a place of trying to fit all of those shapes in the sorter that don't fit. I just find that through the atonement of Jesus Christ that it all fits, and that his understanding and his love is big enough for all of that to work out.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Will you share with us some of the blessings that you feel your family has gotten or that you personally have gained as you've walked through this?
Oh, sure. Early on in my life, I think sometimes I had my own, I was so sure about how the world was really run, how it's really operated according to my own paradigm. Mm-hmm. When I would make decisions about things or that I thought were important or what I was willing to fight for, what I was willing to stand up for to teach my family and everything, I had such a limited scope of other people's experiences of diversity, of what other people's diverse thoughts and diverse feelings and actions bring to the table and really how they beautify our lives. I think that through my experience with Daphne and getting to know and love her the way that I do, it has opened up so many more blessings and opportunities in my life. So even though I, for a long time, would have thought, oh, it'd be easier if she just did what I had planned for her. It'd just be easier if she felt the way that I assumed that she would feel. Now I wouldn't trade it because I just feel like I've changed and I wouldn't want to go back to how I felt, which looking back was pretty homophobic and like judgmental and really without understanding. Like I never walked a mile in their shoes, and I still haven't, but maybe now I've walked with someone a mile in their shoes, and that's really changed things for me. My younger daughters, they didn't know that Daphne was gay until each of them found out in course. They're about a year and a half apart. They both found out about the time they were 13. And that was even crazy because like having parts of your family know and the other part doesn't, that's probably one of the things I would do differently, obviously, if I were to go back. But both of them have such compassion for the LGBTQ community. Like, their friends at school, it's not even daunting to them. They're just like, oh yeah, so-and-so came out to me, or this is what this person identifies as. They're way more open to it, but also in a very, they also love their religion. Mm-hmm. It's pretty neat to see. Like, I feel like they're getting an opportunity to grow at this young age in ways that it took me in my 40s to grow. And they don't have any fear about those kinds of topics or what that can look like. They love Daphne. They adore Daphne. They adored Daphne's fiance. They got to be part of that. It's actually been really, really healthy for them. Something that I was so afraid would be so unhealthy for them has been very, very healthy. So I would say that those are the biggest blessings, is that it has given us a chance to walk with other people on their journey. Even if it isn't our journey, we can step in, and my kids have been able to do that, to walk with them a little bit and to see kind of what their journey's like, instead of judging them so without really knowing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Erin, is there anything else that you feel it would be good to share?
Sure. I was thinking that I wanted to share that I know that the members of LGBTQ community, they come from a variety of backgrounds. They come from a variety of beliefs. They have their own experiences and their own walks and their own challenges that they face. They may not believe in God, but it is my personal experience and understanding through the ways that I've been able to connect with God, the ways that I've been able to connect with God on Daphne's behalf, especially, that have led me to believe that he loves his LGBTQ children. He adores them. He is passionate about them. He wants them to learn and grow. And he is, I believe he's kind. He can give hope. And I hope that my message overall is a message of hope. If there's anybody that is in a situation where they were, where I was early on, where they are filled with fear, I hope that they can know that there's light ahead, that their experiences that they have, either as an LGBTQ person or as someone who loves them and also comes from a religious background, that they can find a place where they find peace. At least that was my experience, and I hope for them to know that it can be possible. I guess I'm not saying that it's something that they should have to feel like they've got to aspire to, or that if they're not feeling that right now, that they're not doing something right or something. I'm just trying to say that in my own journey that that's been the case, and if it's something that they're looking for, that hopefully is something that they'll come to as well. And especially that I believe that God's in the details of people's lives, and that is very much for anyone who is experiencing same-sex attraction, or someone who is dating some other same gender, or someone who is trying to find themselves in their journey with that. He doesn't turn his head. He doesn't look away. He doesn't say, well, you're not worthy of my love. You're not part of who I'm interested in anymore. He is, I'd say, even more so interested in us as we're trying to find our way, whatever that is. And I just want to make sure that I get that out there, because I think as a mom, when everybody was fitting into my little paradigm, it was really easy to believe that God loved them, because it was just like, oh look, they're fitting right in. They're doing what they should be. He's probably so pleased, you know. Mm-hmm. He's probably so pleased with me. Look at what they're doing, and it looks all so nice and tidy. And then all of a sudden to realize life's big, and it's diverse, and it's messy, and he loves all of us all the same through all of that. That's been a really great thing to realize, because that means that he loves all of his children, and that's probably my biggest thing I want to come away with, is that maybe we should all tread a little bit more carefully, a little bit more kindly with other people in their path, because we're all just trying to kind of get through this together, I guess. So
Awesome.
that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.